In this video, we're going to look at the data in Google Analytics to get an idea of if Google likes your website or not. So we're going to look at two things primarily. One, which is the bounce rate, which tells us what percentage of people leave your website without taking any action on your site, without clicking on something. And we're also going to look at the amount of time that people might spend on a page. So I'm in Google Analytics here, so I've logged in with my Gmail email and my password, and now I'm going to go in and access my website because I haven't actually looked at the data since I made the changes to make it more mobile friendly, so it will be interesting information for me as well. Okay, so basically when you first come into Google Analytics, you usually come into this overview page, and what it usually shows you is just the last month. So generally you would probably see something like this. Just shows you the last month of data. And so if I look at this, I can see that over the last month, my bounce rate on average is 62%. So I can look at that and go, well, you know, that may feel like it's a little bit high, but what this doesn't tell you is the bounce rate for individual pages on your site, because blog posts often have a much higher bounce rate than other pages. It doesn't tell you whether the people are coming from organic traffic, whether they're coming direct to your site, or if it's you know, the robot referral traffic that's causing the bounce rate to seem so high. So we actually have to do a lot more in-depth investigation to really see, because this is saying on average I got 1.42, and on average, what's that, 6 seconds or something. Okay, so this page doesn't really give me any data that I can use to make any kind of assessment of how my site's actually going. Where I need to go is down into this section here called Acquisition, and then I need to go into the Channels section. So when I go into the Channels section, again, we're just looking at the last month. I can see that for organic search, my overall bounce rate is 65%. It's a bit lower for direct and social, and then it's a bit higher for referral traffic. At the moment, there's a lot of people are getting referral traffic from just robots. It's not real referral traffic. So if referral traffic is your highest and you've got, you know, thousands, go and have a look in there, and you'll see that in most cases it's not like real websites. If it's True Local, if it's some other website that you know of, that's great. But things like Success, SEO, these backlink watch, all that kind of thing is coming from robots, and it's not real. So what we want to do now is have a look at my organic traffic over the last month, and firstly it will give me like these keyword phrases, which most of the time it's not provided, so it's not that useful information. What I really want to look at is the landing pages. So you'll see up here it says landing page. If yours doesn't say landing page up there, you need to go into other, acquisition, and then landing page to get to the data. And then this tells me which pages on my website people are coming to and what the bounce rate is. So I can see that over the last month, the majority of people are going to a blog post on my site that's about Australian business directories, and the bounce rate is 71%. Now that's okay for a blog post, but often people are coming, they're getting information, and they're leaving. So I'm not necessarily expecting them to go and take any particular action. My home page has a bounce rate of 50%, but we're only looking at sort of 1 month, and it's not a whole lot of data. So what I really want to do is I want to see what has happened to my bounce rate since I made the changes to make my website more mobile friendly. So we'll go from the 21st of April when the update happened, because I can't exactly remember when I changed the site, but it was around about then. And I'm going to go from the 21st of April until now, and then I'm going to compare it to the exact number of days. The previous period is the exact number of days prior to the 21st of April. So however many days it is from the 21st of April to the 17th of August, the previous period is the same number of days but prior, if that makes sense. So I'm going to apply that. And we'll go back to the channels again. Okay, so I can see that, so this is before the change from December through to April. My bounce rate for organic search was 64%, and it's actually come up to 58%. So that's really good. I'm really happy about that it's actually improved, because the template that I've used has actually slowed the site down a bit, which is something that could have potentially increased the bounce rate. My direct traffic is having a similar bounce rate, and then you'll see that referral traffic has gone down significantly. I'm getting less robots and more real traffic, which is why the bounce rate has actually come down. And then for social media, the bounce rate has slightly gone up. So what we need to look at now is, if we're going to the organic search, we want to look at specific pages on the website. So again, we can go into the landing page. Okay, so what I can see is that for this particular blog post, my average bounce rate has actually improved from 71% to 66%. So I'm pretty happy with that for a blog post, because bearing in mind that in some cases your bounce rate could be high because people, the action that they're taking is calling you on the telephone. And if someone calls you on the telephone and doesn't fill in a form or go to other pages on your website, but you still get business, then obviously that's the most important thing. So you've got to keep in mind that when you're looking at these bounce rates, we're looking at it from the perspective of, if you're a business that's probably getting a lot of email contacts, if you're a business that gets a lot of phone contacts, then the bounce rate may not be as important to you. Right, so I can see for my home page, my bounce rate has improved as well, which is something that I'm happy about. So for a lot of my main pages, my bounce rate is doing better. So certainly 37.4%, pretty happy with that for my home page. What you'll also notice is that for my home page, the amount of time that someone's spending has gone from 2 minutes 30 up to 3 minutes 12. And where is that? I've also, for this blog post, the bounce rate's come down and the amount of time that someone's spending on that page has also gone up. So I can certainly therefore assess that by changing my theme over, as I have done, that I'm getting more interaction on my website. And then you want to look at, well, does this also convert to more inquiries? Because I suppose there's no point if there's more people spending time on your site and the bounce rate is lower, but if you're not getting as many inquiries as you were before. So there's many things to kind of look at to work out whether people are liking your website or not. But I would say that if on your home page, if you're getting a bounce rate on your home page of 60, 70, 80%, then that's not good. And if you're only getting people spending like seconds on your pages rather than minutes, then that's probably not good either, as far as helping your website improve its rankings in Google. Now, another thing that you could look at to get a bit of an idea of where your traffic is coming from, and therefore how relevant it might be seen. So if we go into the audience and then the geo section and then the location, and I can see that overall, since I changed the website over, I've had more traffic coming in from Australia than I did previously. But the other figures are pretty similar. So let's just take that away. So I don't really need to compare it. And let's look at this over the last year and a bit. So we can see that the majority of my traffic is coming from Australia. I've also got a lot of traffic coming from India, which is probably because a lot of them are going to my blog post about directories within Australia that are good for listing Australian businesses on, and because a lot of people use companies in India to do that, that's probably why. But you can see the difference in bounce rate between, say, Australia and then someone from the States who's, come to the page, or someone from Brazil who may not have meant to have come to the page, or it could be that this traffic from Brazil is some of that, because I don't know why I would have people from Brazil coming to my site and it's such a high bounce rate. So potentially that is the traffic that's coming from robots. Often some people will have a really high amount of traffic coming from Russia because that's where a lot of the robots come from. But if we go into Australia, then it can also break it down for you into the various locations within Australia. So obviously it makes sense that I would be getting a lot more people from Queensland. And again, we can see that my bounce rate for people in Queensland. Now this is sort of my overall site, regardless of how they've got to my site. So the bounce rate overall is a lot lower than what we saw initially of 60-something%. And you can see the average amount of time that somebody in Australia is spending is 3 minutes. Sorry, in Queensland. And they're going to more pages. So you could have a look and go, wow, great, in Australian Capital Territory, but it's actually only 4 people, so the data doesn't really mean a lot. So hopefully that gives you an idea of some of the things that you can use in Google Analytics to get an idea of whether people like your site. Probably another thing that is a good one to look at is your mobile overview, just to look at how much traffic is coming from mobile. So we can see, so if we look at this on a month-by-month basis, let's go from 1st of April. Okay, so then if we have a look at the desktop traffic. So again, this is overall, we can't sort of get it down to another level to see whether it's organic or direct or social media. But what we can see is that 94% of the people that are coming to my website are coming from a desktop, which is expected really because of the fact that why would you search for SEO services on a mobile? There's some services that you would absolutely search for on a mobile, but probably not SEO. And you can see that my bounce rate on a tablet is really good. So my website obviously potentially looks a lot better on a tablet than it does on a desktop for some reason. So you can see that on the desktop, people are obviously spending a lot more time than they are on a mobile, and obviously it gives you the bounce rate there. So that might be something that's useful, because if your website has like 50% of traffic coming from mobile and your mobile bounce rate is incredibly high, then that would be an indication that for some reason people aren't liking your mobile site. And another thing that we can look at is the devices that people, or the browsers that people are using, which might give you an idea if there's something wrong on a particular browser. So you can see most of the people who are coming to my website are coming from Google Chrome. You can see that on Internet Explorer, the bounce rate is less than everywhere else, and they're actually spending more time. So potentially for some reason my site might look better on Internet Explorer than it does on the other browsers. And we can see that on Opera, that's the highest, so that might be something to look at. Let's see what other data we can get from Chrome. Okay, so that's probably not that useful. Let's have a look at network. Okay, so majority of people are using Optus. So again, that might be relevant data for somebody. If you can look here and see if you had if I had the majority of people here using Optus and the bounce rate was 90% from Optus, then that may well be something to look at as well. So it's just data that might help as far as seeing if there's any problems on any particular devices or services for your website, and also seeing with particular pages on your website, the individual pages, what kind of bounce rate you're getting. So just to sort of summarize that, I would say that the lowest bounce rates that I tend to see are usually somewhere between 20 to 30%. A lot of people have bounce rates from somewhere between 30 and 50%, and once you start getting over 50% bounce rate for your home page, then that's a relatively high bounce rate, unless of course, as I mentioned before, you're a business where you're getting a lot of phone calls. So I'm just going to go back to this data. So I can look at this and go, okay, that's not too bad, but ultimately I would prefer that my homepage bounce rate was around 20 to 30%, because a lot of my inquiries are going to be through email rather than phone calls. On my blog posts, I don't particularly mind if the bounce rate is a bit higher, but there may well be things that I can do within certain blog posts to try and get people to actually use my services, so to put more links into the page to encourage them to click through to one of my service pages on the website. So there's lots of things that you can do to actually improve these, and then the idea obviously is whether somebody is coming to your website from social media, from being referred, coming directly to your website, coming through organic searches. The more time that they spend on the site and the lower the bounce rate, generally, the more that Google is going to assume that people like your website. If you're in an industry where Google sees that everybody in your industry has high bounce rates because people are mostly phoning you, then obviously Google can take that into account and knows that kind of thing. So best of luck, and if you've got any questions to do with your website and bounce rates and industry and all that kind of thing, then I'm more than happy to try and answer those for you.